It has been 1 month, 30 days since Donald Trump took office as U.S. president for the second time, and it has been a whirlwind with no signs of slowing down. Okay, joining us now for an even more in-depth look at Trump's first month in office, Joseph Williams. Joseph is a journalist, former senior editor at U.S. News and World Report. As always, Joseph, good to see you.
Same here.
Okay, where do we start on this one? I'll let you start. No, okay, so the MAGA world is celebrating. There's no question about that. But what exactly are they celebrating? Because how does Trump justify his aggressive use of these executive orders and reshaping government? And it has just thrown D.C. into complete chaos. Nobody knows where we stand, how many people have been let go, how much money is out there, do people have jobs?
Well, and you can almost imagine that this was by design, when you flood the zone, it's really hard for people to keep track of exactly what's going on, when it's going on, and whose oxes are being gored. And I think that's one of the reasons why Trump likes it this way. You remember his previous presidency, there was a lot of chaos. This time, the chaos seems a little bit more organized, not only to keep his critics off balance, to keep Democrats off balance, but also to keep the American people from really figuring out what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and what kind of downstream effects might take place as a result of all this activity.
Okay, a couple of things here. We have to bring in Elon Musk, but before I want to talk about him and what he has done and the massive influence he and his band of very young people have over the federal agencies, I want to get your take on Donald Trump and the magazine that the White House put out on X yesterday, saying it's basically saying, long live the king. Donald Trump with the crown on. There it is. Congestion pricing is dead in Manhattan, but there's the picture of they put on, long live the king. And that just offended a lot of people. There's no other way around it, who understand and embrace this nation built on a democracy.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, we've fought, by my count, at least 3 wars to maintain independence from a crown. And to have a president, a duly elected president, who's doing all these things unilaterally suggests that he is in fact the king, is in fact going to offend a lot of people. And I'm surprised that a lot more people on the right have not spoken up about this, mainly because this is their issue. They don't like an imperial presidency unless their guy's in office, and even then only to a certain extent. So it's really kind of mind-boggling and, dare I say, arrogant to embrace this as an image, particularly in such a fraught time with such a divided electorate. I mean, it's a very good way to see your poll ratings dive down into the 20s and not come back up for some time.
Yeah, and what about Musk?
And that's another problematic issue, I think, where you have a South African-born billionaire who's basically running roughshod over the federal government. And there are definitely going to be downstream effects as a result of what's happening when you have tens of thousands of federal workers flooding the workplace. The unemployment rate is going to tick up, and Elon Musk is not accountable to the voters. I mean, he said that people elected for change in Washington, that they voted for a government shakeup, but they did not, in fact, vote for him. And I think that's going to be a bit of an albatross around Donald Trump's neck, especially when a lot of these cuts start hitting the fan.
And never mind the fact that he's getting billions of dollars from the federal government, wants to build a plant in India, has a plant in China, 2 things that fly in the face of President Trump's America First policy. But moving on, how does Trump defend mass federal firings as an efficiency strategy? And I do find it surprising that the response has been pretty feckless from Democrats, and as you mentioned earlier, no pushback from the GOP.
Well, he's got his will. I mean, at this point in his presidency, even though the numbers don't reflect it, he does in fact have a mandate because nobody's opposing it. And I think that one of the reasons why he's trying to justify these cuts is in savings. But if you look at the scoreboard, about $2 billion has been saved when they were estimating at least 10 times that. Not to mention the fact that you're getting rid of a lot of senior people, a lot of experience and talent is walking out of the door, and they're going to be flooding the marketplace. And eventually, this is going to catch up with the administration. You're going to need people who know what they're doing. You're going to need senior bureaucrats, because this is not like a private company. This is not X. This is the federal government. And those cuts are starting to hit farmers. They're starting to hit Social Security pensioners. They're starting to hit different places in the market that I think is going to be really, really difficult and is going to cause him some economic problems. And as you mentioned earlier, the price of eggs has still not gone down. So I think there are some issues here that he's certainly going to have to deal with before the midterms and probably sooner rather than later.
Let's talk about Trump's long-term vision for U.S. foreign policy as well. Again, lack of response from Republicans as he cozies up to Putin, even blaming Ukraine for starting the conflict there.
Well, I think that's also another issue. I mean, we're doing a lot of things as a country that would have been unfathomable 10 years ago or even 5 years ago during the Trump 1 presidency. Some of these issues are going to have some serious blowback. I think Ukraine is going to have blowback. You already see the European allies organizing to try to cut, if not necessarily cut America out, but certainly go it alone without the world's largest superpower. China is basically getting an advantage on trade and national security handed to them by Donald Trump. The Russians are certainly going to be very, very happy if the deal that's on the table right now goes through, because Vladimir Putin will get relief from sanctions, and he also will not have to pay a price for seizing a territory that's technically in Europe, which has the Europeans frightened. So all of this combined with feuds with Mexico, feuds with Canada, feuds with anybody you want to talk about in the West, it really bodes ill for us as a nation going forward.
Joseph, always good to chat with you, my friend. I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about, and it's not going to take every 30 days to bring you on. Thanks again.
Take care.